So weirdly, people have emotions around asking. It's not this neutral thing. And this is why you see so much bad fundraising, is because rather than deal with the emotions around asking, we do all these things to not ask. So every time you have a gala or a golf tournament, it's because you don't want to sit down, look somebody in the face and say, would you invest $1,000 a year for the next 5 years? And to get away from that discomfort, you do all this not asking for money. Or you do things like grant writing. Grant writing's fine. Grant writing raises, on an average, maybe 17% of a budget for a nonprofit. But it's hours of work with a 1/3 chance you're going to get the grant. And where we live, there's a limited number of grants. And certainly if you're a startup, it's really, really difficult to get those first grants. So let's say for a moment that you needed $1,000. And there was like 3 or 4 people you could ask. And one person could give you $50. And one person could give you $170. And one person could give you $750. Would you really spend your time on the $50 person or the $170 person? No, you'd spend your time on the $750 person because you need $1,000. Well, where money in our country comes from is 5% is from corporations, 17% roughly is from foundations, 8% is from bequests, 75% is from individuals. How many places have a grant writer and they don't have anybody to ask individuals for money? And please note, if 8% comes from bequests and 5% come from corporations, in this country, dead people give more money than corporations.
Yes.
And we're not going and asking our $80 donors, would you consider a legacy gift in your will? Would you like to live forever? You can give a gift that will be supporting people in decades to come, long after you have shuffled off this mortal coil. We are so afraid of doing that that we're leaving the $750 on the table so we can go and pursue the $170 and the $50. And that's painful to me. So how do you overcome that feeling of emotion around asking for money? So I think some of it is there's this feeling of inequality when you ask for money. Like, you want to be a peer with this person, and if you ask them for something, you are diminished. And so it feels like you are somehow lesser if you are in this position to ask. So the first thing I would suggest is think about it differently. Instead of thinking about, I am somehow diminished if I'm begging for money. You can't think of this as begging for money. You are offering people an opportunity. They want to be part of your opportunity. They would love to do what you do every day. They want to go out and change the world. And they don't have the skill set to do that. They're not a social worker, or they're not an organizer, or they're not the person who can do what you do. They envy you. They wish they didn't have to show up at the job that's not emotionally fulfilling. They imagine your life is better. And you're offering this opportunity to invest in change. And they're not going to dedicate 2,080 hours a year to that. They have their career, they don't have your skill sets, but they can write you a check. And they get to be part of the success. They get to be the hero in the story. All I'm doing is playing a numbers game. I don't expect every single person to say yes to me. In fact, I pretty much expect that if I call 100 people, 50 won't even call me back. And 25 will say no. But I'm looking for those 25 that'll say yes. So all I'm doing is playing a numbers game. Everything that I do, if I'm sending out emails, I know that in 1,000 emails asking for money, I'll raise $44. If I send out 1,000 letters to people who've never been involved with my organization before, only 10 people are going to write me back. Mm-hmm. But I know if I sit down in front of somebody who accepted an appointment for an hour to hear what we're doing, 2/3 are going to write a check at the end. So all I need to do is have tea 3 times a week with people who said yes to tea. If the start that I ask is about $1,000 a year with a 5-year pledge, At the end of the year, I'll have $150,000. At the end of 5 years, if I'm having tea 3 times a week, I'll be getting in $750,000. Whatever you're doing in fundraising that isn't sit down with people and ask them for money, you have allowed your emotions to basically steal from your organization. If you're excited because your gala took 6 months and it raised $30,000 or $60,000, and at the end of 5 years, you're not raising $750,000 a year from your work, all the time you spent on the gala is a complete waste of time because you weren't sitting down with people 3 times a week for tea, for an hour, and creating the relationships that would lead to $750,000 over 5 years.